Safely across Brightstar Lake, I looked with sadness at the distant shore of the nation of Semfar, which I'd always wanted to see, but now I was so close to it, I knew there was simply no way I could make my way over there and survive. Plus, I had very unexpected company now in the form of a long, serpentine jade dragon named Graxel Garandal, who had hunted me down as a favour to my great-uncle Trasquenyabar, in order to transport me from Brightstar Lake all the way to the Sea of Fallen Stars. And from there, well, we headed underwater to a secret location in the nation of Theros, and a magic portal that led directly to Candlekeep. But I can't tell you much more about that, for obvious reasons. Jade dragons are another of the so-called neutral true dragons. They speak their own language and generally avoid the company of annoying little humanoids. I was informed by Graxel Garandal that I was in no danger of being eaten, but that he was only there to repay a debt to my great uncle and was not interested in conversing with me. I was simply to shut up and not bother him, as he took me rapidly through the water, all the way from one mouth of the Roathan Flow River to the other and down to the portal site in the Sea of Fallen Stars. He certainly did a lot of talking though, and what he told me about the recent history of Mergome was so shocking, I was largely speechless anyway. I should also mention that the voice of a jade dragon is so loud, he would barely have heard me trying to ask any questions. Their breath weapon is literally just their breath. They release a sonic boom, or more precisely, a sonic wail that is quite deafening, blasting out in a 90-foot radius from their impressively large mouth. It's a hell of a thing to witness. The jade dragon has a long and serpentine body, more like the lung dragons of the lands of Karatur, or perhaps the vicious Lenorms. Except the jade dragon does have a set of perfectly functional wings. They just keep them tucked in so closely to their body when not in flight that it's easy to think that they're not there. They also move very differently from other dragons of Faerun, coiling and twisting as they run. Their short limbs function more to just keep them from slithering or rolling along the ground. The motion is mostly from the mighty strength of their entire coiling body. So when on the go, they seem to be, well, to me, to be fairly constant. It was like Graxel Garandal's head was trailed by a serpentine spring. His head almost flew across the land, just as he did in the sky. This gave him a tremendous speed underwater. But jade dragons are not aquatic dragons. They developed these amazingly flexible habits from living in dense forests in the canopy, and Graxel Garandal actually called the tropical jungles of Chult, Mare, and the Black Jungle his home. That explained exactly why I'd never heard of the jade dragons before. Those jungles, particularly the last two, are basically death traps for humanoids who are not native to them. He told me that Mergome was once populated by a series of semi-autonomous communities that gathered into collective government only in times of war. They were excellent horse breeders and riders with leaders called ataman. However, as recently as 1409 in the Dale Reckoning calendar, a plague swept through the dragon population of the Copper Mountains, causing many dragons to flee. A very powerful blue dragon named Skelnader flew to Mergome and stopped to rest near a small village known as Fanaskull. The frightened villagers didn't know anything about the plague and assumed the dragon was there to terrorize them, so they just surrendered and pledged fealty to the surprised dragon, who agreed to rule the village. He didn't really have much interest in being a tyrannical overlord, so his rule over the villagers was fairly peaceful and prosperous, causing the village to grow into a city that they named after him. Since then, other dragons have sought to emulate his example, and eventually many worms dominated the lands of Mergome and Semfar. Then populations of displaced and harassed dragonborn flocked to the new kingdoms of the so-called princes of Mergome. Although the dragon princes don't trust the dragonborn too much, knowing most of them have no love for draconic kings, a few of them overcome those prejudices and employed dragonborn as their servants, which worked out very well. So now the dragonborn have found a new home nation for themselves, or what is shaping up to be the beginnings of a new empire that I can't see much standing in the way of. In many ways, this is exactly the return to the old state of the world before the impact of the Dragon Rage mythal. You see, although of course the dragon princes fight amongst themselves to increase their holdings and eliminate rivals, not one of them seeks to conquer all the lands and rule over them all as their king or queen, even Skelnader, considered to be the strongest of them all. Instead, they have created a council of dragon princes who hold court over all the lands surrounding Brightstar Lake from some 20,000 feet in the sky aboard a stable earth moat, floating up there for who knows how long. It's an unspoken rule among them that neither dragon princes or landless worms attack any other dragons directly, as they want to make their subjects believe that the princes are untouchable and invincible. This is directly thanks to the influence of the great game of Zorventhal, and the power of the dragons who play that game in the shadows, I suspect, and perhaps the moderate influence of the Dragonborn themselves. Not many humanoids have or ever will be permitted to travel 5 miles into the sky above the great wild wood of Mergome to visit the castle built near the centre of the earth moat named Dracoware. It is essentially sacred ground, neutral ground for all true dragons, where they can meet to discuss conflicts and such without resorting or worrying too much about violence. Any dragon who breaks that rule will most certainly be killed by other dragons very shortly after. As I have often said, the one thing we should fear most is when dragons start to cooperate with each other, and it seems I was quite correct. Another point of concern is that the nation of Semfar is the location where the first dwarven population appeared on Toril, so under the land now ruled by dragons lies untold treasures and powerful magical artifacts that could shift power even more in the dragon's favour. However, there could also be mind-breaking horrors buried deep under there, which have until now been lost to history. But you can be sure that legions of kobolds are excavating under the dragon's new territory with fanatical intensity, seeking to enrich their master's hoards. I know this has to deeply bother every dwarf on the planet, so hopefully word of this has reached them and brings this situation to a head. I don't wish for such a war, but I can't see how there can be any other outcome. Neither can Graxel Garandal. Unlike the emerald or green dragons, the jade dragons have scales that have a random swirling pattern of different shades of green. When twisted around a canopy of a lush jungle, they blend into the foliage perfectly, and when they release that blasting shockwave of sound from their maw, it causes a blizzard of leaves that are torn from the trees, acting like a smoke cloud that conceals them even better. They use the cover to stay distant and hard to see while they unleash a barrage of spell magic. They only close in with bites and claws when a victim has been mostly incapacitated. This is very effective against those fools who would try and hunt such a magnificent creature, and to my knowledge, no jade dragon hide has ever been taken and sold. If one did appear on the market, it would fetch an outrageous sum of coins, as the patterns of it are really quite beautiful to behold. Typical dragons, the jades love to collect treasure, particularly the stone they're named after. In alchemy, powdered jade has an affinity for illusionary spells, and is the ingredient of choice when mixing magical inks to scribe such spell scrolls. The best time of day for mixing jade dust into a magical preparation is candleglass time. I'm not sure why, but it's a standard part of alchemical training. Although jade dragons do not have the innate ability to shape change and polymorph like the metallic dragons, they can learn the spell magic to perform the same task, and jade stone is often used as a material component of the Karaturan version of the shape change spell. Jade dragons are part of the D&D basic world of Mystara and can be found in the 2nd edition Mystara Monstrous Compendium Appendix. They are also found in the 2nd edition Monstrous Compendium Annual Volume 1 and Dragon Magazine number 158. You may notice I didn't provide a lot of game mechanics for the stats for the Jade Dragon in this video. For those of you who want to convert them, it's really easy just to use a Green Dragon stat block as a template, change the breath weapon to a sonic one, which is force damage. They don't have as many mind control abilities as the Green Dragon does, but they do have a slightly better speed and a much broader range of illusionary spell magic, which they use to great effect in their forest homes. They also have a slightly faster swim speed and ground speed than the Green Dragon does, and generally speaking they're a bit smaller even than the already quite small Green Dragons, but they can grow to an impressively huge size like most of the neutral dragons. They can grow to up to 70 or 80 feet long. Finally, they have the Forest Walk ability, so they can basically move at speed across difficult terrain in forest canopies and jungles without any impediment, which can make them extremely difficult to get away from if they are hunting you. Coming up next, another installment of the Dragon Tales series, and coming next month, we are diving deep into Spelljammer and lots of videos on cosmic monsters, and probably more than you ever wanted to know about sailing the oceans of the multiverse. As always, my name is AJ Pickett. Thanks for listening, and I'll be back with more for you very soon.